to take a photo of us. It's so cute.
Where are we starting? All right.
There you
Welcome
go.
to the Holistic Kids Show. My name is Zayn.
My name's Abdullah.
My name's Imad.
So we're the Holistic Kids here to educate us kids from the inside out. Today, us kids are facing a mental health crisis, showing more signs of anxiety and depression than ever before.
There are so many kids in my class that are suffering.
It's a sad reality, and guess what? If left unaddressed, these mental messes can follow us into teens and adulthood. So we need to manage this today.
So where do we start? How can we help ourselves?
That is why we picked up this book, and all of you should pick it up today. It's so good, and to help us answer just that. Now, best-selling author and renowned neuroscientist, Dr. Caroline Leaf.
She is the host of the top-rated and award-winning podcast, Cleaning Up the Mental Mess, which reveals scientifically proven steps to help us kids ages 3 to 10 overcome unhealthy thinking habits and how to help your child clean up your mental mess, which we have right now. A guide to building resilience and managing mental health for kids.
Thank you so much, Dr. Caroline. We know you are in the middle of a book launch, so we are so thankful for your time today.
Oh, I'm so honored, and thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm very, very thrilled to be talking to you about this incredibly important problem, as we know, but there are solutions, which is so great.
I mean, well, it's our pleasure.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Leaf, you are a communication pathologist and also a clinical and cognitive neuroscientist specializing in psychoneurobiology and metacognitive neurophysiology. Your passion is to help people see the power of the mind to change their brain, control chaotic thinking, and find mental peace. And now write books and have your podcast. And so, how did you start all of that? Getting into kids' mental health instead of, because most people, right, they focus on adult and teenagers' mental health. So, what inspired you to do that? We would love to hear your story.
Great question. Well, I practiced clinically for 25 years, and I'd say a good, maybe even half of my practice was with children. My youngest patients were at ages 2 through 3, and some of my oldest patients were in their 80s and 90s. So I've worked with the whole spectrum. But the reason I've written this book now is because, as you started off the show, there's a mental health crisis. But you know what? The mental health crisis is actually only a symptom. It's a symptom of a bigger crisis. There's actually a bigger crisis. And if we address that crisis, we can actually solve the problem. And that's also why I've written the book. And the bigger crisis is mind management. We need to know how to manage our mind. Thank you. That's in this book. So I explain in this book about this. So all my other work, I've written books for many other books as well. This is from adolescence through adulthood. This one is 2 through 10. So I work with the entire spectrum. I also have an app called the Neurocycle app. And I know we're probably going to talk about the Neurocycle today. And there's a whole parent add-on in there as well. So essentially, I wrote this book to help parents and children help themselves understand the mind and understand that if you feel anxious or depressed or sad in any way, that there's nothing wrong with you or your brain, but that there's something going on in your life. And if you understand that it's not something wrong with you or your brain, but there's something going on in your life, then you need the tools to be able to understand how to work out what is going on, what is the cause of this, and how to deal with that. And so that's really why I've written this book, is to help empower children and adults from as young as possible to have the ability to not think, oh, there's something wrong with my brain, or there's something wrong with me, or I'm bad, or I'm broken. You're not broken. Life is hard. Things happen. People get bullied. People go through trauma, and that affects how we function, and that affects our mental health. But it doesn't mean we have a broken brain. It doesn't mean we have a disease. It's more about mind management. And unfortunately today, when people are battling, when kids are battling, adults are battling, people get labeled and they're told that they have a disease of the brain, and that's not accurate science. So I wanted to bring the truth to people and help people from as young as possible to manage their mind. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, it's so amazing how you're just like now going in and helping other kids understand their own brains. Right? That's why we are and trying to help kids understand their bodies.
That's amazing there. And you know that every experience we have, the mind is driving the brain and the body. So if you think of it, we've got a brain in our head, we've got a body, and we are alive. We able to communicate. And the fact that but if we were dead, our brain and our body wouldn't be functioning. So what is the difference between, it's such a stupid question, but you'll see where I'm going. What's the difference between an alive person and a dead person? Is the mind. The mind is the thing that's actually driving the brain and the body. So if people are going to look after their body, for example, and eat healthy and do exercise and that kind of thing, and you do a lot of that for helping people to look after their body, you're also looking after your brain. But the ability to do that, to understand how to do that, you've got to be alive. You've got to have your mind working. So the first thing in mental health is to understand what is the mind and what is the brain, and what's the difference between the mind and the brain. And then we've got to talk about, okay, that's the difference. How do I manage my mind? So what does mind management look like? And that's kind of what I get into in the book, which you may have seen. And I've got a little cartoon character to help people understand, the character called Brainy. And I've even got a toy. We've created a toy, even this cute little toy called Brainy, that basically walks the mental health journey with you. And he has a superpower called the Neurocycle. And that's the basic system of how you can learn to manage your mind and to recognize when you're battling. And it's okay to battle, but what do you do when you're battling? If someone's teasing you, if someone's upsetting you, if someone's doing something to you that they shouldn't, it's going to affect you. And you need to know how to be able to tell that story.
So us kids have thoughts all the time. So what exactly are thoughts? We love the pictures you have here in here, and we love Brainy.
Oh, I'm glad you love Brainy. I do too, and my dogs as well. I have to literally get this away from my little Shih Tzu puppy. Grabbed this before I came in here and ran off with it. There you go. There's Brainy throughout the book. So I use Brainy to help explain these concepts because, I mean, you guys are older, but if you think of a 2 and 3 year old, it's so much easier to understand difficult concepts with pictures and things like that. So I also have a coloring book, Color with Brainy and Friends, which has got different scenarios. And then that you can color in if you're feeling sad or happy or whatever. There's various different scenarios. Like, for example, this one is you're more than just a grade. So if you get a bad grade and whatever, just to help people to be able to communicate that issue. So thoughts. What are thoughts? One of my favorite questions. So I've spent 38 years. I've been researching this stuff. I still do research. I still run what we call clinical trials. And a thought is basically what is growing in your head at the moment while we're speaking. So a thought is a cluster of memories, and they group together to form a tree-like structure, which is why I use the analogy of a tree. And so as I'm speaking, you're hearing my words, and your mind is enabling you to understand what I'm saying. But that's the psychological side. On the other side, my words are auditory sound waves and energy. So your mind does two things. It helps you to think and feel and choose and understand what I'm saying. And it also takes the energy from my words and the things that you're seeing, all of that energy from this conversation, for example, and then puts that into the brain. And then the brain responds. And the brain responds with energy and electricity and chemicals and genetics. And this conversation, it's all happening very fast, goes from words and energy into the brain and becomes clusters of memories that build into trees. I've actually got a little image of it. I've got a little tree over here, which is a great way to explain it. So you're literally building trees in your brain. So thoughts look like trees, and like a tree's got branches, or a little plant's got branches, and it's got a trunk and it's got roots. That's kind of what thoughts are like. So every single experience that you have, as you're having the experience, that goes into the brain the way I explained, and it grows into these trees. But that's the experience are the roots. And then as each of you, there's 3 of you, there's 4 of us talking, there's people watching and listening. All of us are hearing the same thing, but we are understanding it differently. So each of us, the roots will be the same because you're hearing the same words. So that's going in via your mind into the brain, and you're growing all the words I'm saying, which are memories, as roots. But then each of you are, because you're different, you're going to think and feel and choose differently, and you're going to grow branches that are different to each other. In other words, the branches of the tree are how you understand what I'm saying according to how you uniquely think and your experiences. So everyone's branches look different in this conversation, but the roots would look the same. So that's the basic idea. You build thoughts. Thoughts are these tree-like structures made of memories. The memories are the roots and the branches, and then those are what drive you. So if you go to, in class, you're learning, let's say, math or history or whatever, social studies, or that information's coming in that goes into the roots. So the mind takes it, puts it in the brain, and you grow the roots. And that's all the detail that the teacher's giving you. And then each of you are understanding that according to your understanding and growing the branches. And then that whole tree is then how you then do your math homework or do your math test. So you build it in here first, and then you use it there. And that's thoughts. So now, let's say someone's bullying you, or let's say someone says something really unkind or excludes you from something. So that's now an unhealthy experience. Instead of it looking nice and healthy like this, I don't have my toxic tree in my studio here at the moment, but imagine an ugly tree that's very much alive, but it's got no leaves, and it's just like scary looking. So that's an unhealthy or a toxic experience, or a negative experience would grow into an unhealthy tree. So instead of it looking pretty, it would be horrible. And that could be anything from, something little, like maybe you just have an argument amongst yourselves, which is just a little issue, to a big thing where someone's really getting like a bad trauma, like something that's really big, like a physical abuse or something, or racism or something like that, that kind of big stuff. But anything that's not healthy goes also built into the brain as a thought. And those thought trees drive us. So if you're only having a lot of bad experiences, you've got a lot of bad stuff driving you. And driving you it means that what are you saying? What are you doing? How you're looking at life? How you are feeling in your body? All of that's how you show up. It's coming from these thought trees. So these thought trees drive you, and we have trillions of them, because we're having lots of experiences. And the good ones will make you function fine, but the problem ones, those are the things that cause mental health problems. So what's happening now in this day and age with mental health is that as soon as someone shows up with maybe depression, then instead of saying, oh, okay, let's describe the depression. Let's see how the depression is affecting your behaviors. Let's talk about what you're saying, what you're doing. Let's talk about how it feels in your body. Let's explore how it's affecting how you look at life. Like maybe you feel depressed and you've got gut ache, and you've got you don't want you don't want to go and see your friends, and life sucks. Let's describe it instead of just say, oh, you've got clinical depression. So in this day and age, what they're doing is they're describing it. I mean, not describing it, they're diagnosing and labeling. And that's not good, because it doesn't tell you anything. What we need to do is describe it. And then you say, well, if I'm feeling all that stuff, why? Why am I feeling this depression? Why am I feeling so sad? Why am I feeling scared to go to school? Why am I feeling like I just want to go and hide in my room or whatever? And then you write that down, because and not in lines, you just write all over the page. When you write all over the page, that makes your brain work harder, and your brain can't work without your mind, as I've been explaining, but it makes your mind and your brain work harder and dig out and find the roots. Because as you start describing and asking yourself why you have those feelings and so on, that pulls the tree from the non-conscious into the conscious mind. But now you've got to do some more work to find out what was the cause. And then when you see that the roots were actually rotten, it was a bad experience, then you can think about, okay, I've got to put plant food on. I've got to see this differently. I've got to heal the roots, and that will then heal the tree. And that process of going from how you feel and how you behaving and how you're looking at life, down to finding the thought, breaking down to finding the roots, and then fixing it again. That process is called the Neurocycle. That's the system that I've developed to help you do that. So when you do that, you're basically changing your mind, brain, and body. And you do that yourself like a brain surgeon. I mean, literally, you are going in your brain and changing your brain in this way when you do the steps of the Neurocycle. And in that way, you can then learn to manage your mental health. And you can do this alone, you can do this with your family, you can do this as a family together. It's a way of, it's something, because you're not always with someone, so you need to learn to do it for yourself. But it's also really great to do it with each other and with your parents, because then they can help you, because sometimes something happens and you don't know how to see it differently. But at least if you can you can say, look, go through these steps, and we can go through them in a little bit slow and a little bit more carefully. But at least if you know how to explain and describe what you're going through, you can then work out how to fix that. And that's pretty much how mental health, the research that I've done, and a lot of my colleagues, and it shows that when you do that, that's when you're actually managing your mental health, and you get healthier, and you learn how to get strong and resilient. But if you just label it and take a medication, it doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't make you strong. You've got to go through these things to get strong. Does that make sense? You're welcome to ask me any questions to make it more simple, or I can re-explain something, or whatever you want.
Yeah, it makes sense, because like you were saying, when someone has good memories, then they feel good, and then and then it carries on for the rest of their life, right? They always remember the good memories. But when someone is saying something mean or something like really insulting, then they'll always remember that, oh yeah, this person used to always be mean to me, and that it really will affect the child of someone, and they'll start getting sad and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And that can affect, if you think of it, if someone at school, there's a group of people at school that have picked on you or something, and they constantly, bullying you. I mean, that is a lot of toxic roots and toxic trees. And if you don't know how to process that, this is full of energy, and it's going to explode in your schoolwork. So you're going to maybe not lose, you're going to lose concentration. You can't pay attention, and you start battling at school, and you start feeling, getting really sad, and maybe it affects your sleep, and maybe you start getting gut ache and problems with your stomach or headaches or something. And then people say, oh, you're sick, and you've got this wrong, and you've got that wrong. Meanwhile, we need to help. You need to know how to help yourself, and you need to know how to ask the questions and say, hey, I'm feeling like this. I don't know what to do with it. I need help. And that there's nothing wrong with your brain. You don't need someone to go and tell you, a doctor to go and tell you that now, hey, you've got a brain disease. You've got something wrong with your brain. That's make you feel worse. Meanwhile, you're getting bullied at school. You don't have a problem with your brain. You're getting bullied at school. You need to know how to be able to express that, and how to deal with that, and how to process that, and how to understand that, it's not you, it's how that bully is affecting you, or something like that.
And I think that's a big problem, right? Because a lot of teachers, when one of the students come and they're like, "Oh, I'm having some problems," and they'll be like, "Oh, so you're the problem then," because of these are the problems that you're having, and it's not caused by anything else, and it's actually being caused by something at home or something in the classroom.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, there could be a divorce going on at home, or there could be problems between parents, or there could be problems between siblings, or maybe someone in the family is battling with an issue and it's affecting you, or you've got a sick parent or a sick grandma. You don't know what's going on. And that's something that if you don't help a child process it, or an adult process it, it builds up and builds up, and it explodes. And when it explodes like a volcano, that's when we get depressed and anxious and panic attacks, and that just gets lumped under mental health. And you get told that you've got a disease. I mean, that's not going to help you. I don't know if you saw, but I've got a whole chapter in the book on labels, and on how we must be very careful of putting labels on people. And it's so cute how you're holding up the book all the time. I love it. Thank you. And that's not good. You don't want to just be told. And also, I mean, you guys, you're still young. You're not, when things happen, you're not trying to be naughty or difficult. You just don't know how to deal with what's happening to you sometimes. And sometimes it can come out that you get frustrated or irritated, or you don't want to eat or something like that. And this is a chance for you to be able to know how to say, look, I feel like this. This is how I feel in my body. This is why I'm doing this. This is how life is hard. I don't want to go to school. I'm scared, and I don't quite know why. But then you can write it down. And so what I'm describing is the neurocycle. Maybe would you like me to maybe describe the neurocycle a bit more clearly? Because that's how we fix our thoughts, basically.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got other questions, whatever you'd like to ask me, I don't mind what you want to ask me.
I just wanna tell everyone, like all the parents out there, that a lot of times, probably the best way to teach someone the best time is during like their childhood, like especially for us. One of the main reasons why we eat like this way, how we eat like organic, non-GMO, non-artificial, is because our mom, she taught us and she gave it to us when we were little, right?
Yeah.
Like Imad, he was born into it.
I was born into it.
There you go.
But for us,
Wonderful.
we used to otherwise we used to have Pepsi, Coke, all this stuff. But then our mom brought home like all this organic stuff. She started teaching us about it, and that's why now we are so strong about it. And that's why even like when our mom's not home or when we're out on a party or something, we'll always choose. We'll always look at the ingredients, and figure out what the best thing to eat is.
That's amazing. So you've learned the skill. So you've actually wired into your brain through your mind, through what your mom's taught you. There's in the roots of the tree are all the healthy ways to eat, the organic, non-GMO, farm to table, real food, and you know about, and so you've understood that, and now this is your understanding of it, and now you take that and you apply it. So when you go to the birthday party, this is what's driving you. But if you didn't know that, then you would be doing the wrong thing. You would be choosing maybe the wrong foods that made you feel, not so good about yourself. And, that's the same thing here. If you think of social media, I mean, if you think of, one thing about the mind, brain, body, this mind, brain, body thing, these thoughts, whatever you think about the most grows. So the more you think about something, the more it grows. Now that's really good when it comes to something like eating healthy, because the more you learn, the bigger this grows, the more it drives you to do the right thing. But imagine if this was a toxic thing. Imagine if you were looking at social media and you were looking at like, this is the only way to look. You have to look a certain way to be accepted, and that's all you look at. Now you're going to have a big toxic tree. And instead of looking at life in a healthy way, you're looking at life in a difficult, in a way that is a toxic way, and then that will create mental health problems, because your brain responds to this. This makes your brain healthy and resilient, and your body healthy and resilient. Like healthy food makes your brain and body. But when you have a toxic thought, your immune system of your brain doesn't distinguish. It doesn't see a toxic thought and a toxic food in any different way. It'll fight the toxic impact of the toxic food, your immune system, and it will fight the toxic experience, like the bullying or something like that, in the same way, because both become changes in your brain. So it's important to understand that. So therefore, we need to pay as much attention to those experiences we have, as well as eating the correct foods and things. And if we don't do that, those thoughts just get bigger and bigger and explode in our life, like I was explaining.
What are simple daily exercises that can help us become emotional healthy and resilient?
Well, I would recommend that you practice the Neurocycle. So the Neurocycle is a system that I developed nearly 38 years ago, based on research and science. And then I worked in my practice with children, as I said, as young as 2, all the way through adults, into elderly people and so on. And what I wanted to understand was, how does an experience like this conversation get into the brain? And then if it gets in, can we make it, if it's good, can we make it bigger? Like the good information, how does the education your mom's given you about food, how does that get into your brain? And then how can you grow it even bigger, so that it always drives you to make good decisions? And I wanted to know that process. And then I wanted to know, can we take that process and use that for things like learning and for building gratitude and, healthy eating, so building good habits. So I developed the Neurocycle initially to help my students that had damage to their brain, for example, or they were battling with learning at school or something. How can they learn how to build their memory and improve their memory so they can improve at school? And then I saw, gosh, this is really helping with that, but it seems to be helping with their mental health too. So then I developed the system more to help people see, okay, how am I showing up? I'm showing up with anxiety, depression, whatever, and going backwards, like reverse engineering. So going from how I show up, the signals, and then finding the tree and then breaking that tree down and building up a healthy version of it. And so both of those, the Neurocycle builds up and it breaks down the toxic stuff. And it's basically how information gets into the mind-brain-body connection. So that fancy word, psychoneurobiology. Psycho means mind, neuro means brain, and biology means body. So how does the information get into that network, and how can I get it out again if it's bad, or how can I make it bigger if it's good? And that's what the Neurocycle does. The Neurocycle is taken all that complex science, and I've made it 5 simple steps that you can do as a lifestyle. So you can do it daily. It's good to do it daily, because the more you do it, the healthier your mind gets. And the healthier your mind, the healthier your brain, body, and your life. So you can practice this when you learn more stuff about food. You can use the Neurocycle to build it in your brain. You can use the Neurocycle to learn at school. And so you get higher grades and you learn more effectively and you grow your brain and your intelligence. And then you can use it on a day-to-day basis. Let's say, I'm sure you two don't really fight much, but you're still brothers and things still may irritate you. You still have little arguments and things. So you can use it to problem solve and sort out an argument between the two of you, between the three of you. Or your friends maybe come around and they irritate you or whatever. Listen, I've got 4 kids fight. So that's the reality. So you can use it for those day-to-day things. And then you can also, let's say that there's a bad habit that you've developed, like maybe social media or something like that you're looking at the wrong stuff and it's affected your identity. You can use the Neurocycle for that. And let's say that there is some big trauma in your life. Hopefully you guys haven't had that, but there are kids that have been badly abused, like Dr. Gundry, you've interviewed him. He talks about things that have happened in childhood and how they can impact us because they wire in and they make us more vulnerable to being sick, and they affect us how we into our adulthood. So we don't want it to go through. We can catch it when you're young. You can prevent that. So the 5 steps are kind of like flying a plane. And if you think of it, when a pilot flies a plane, they first prepare the plane, the pilot, the co-pilot, the engineer, they check everything's right. And there's a lot of preparation. So the first thing we need to do is prepare our brain. And we prepare our brain, when we talk about preparing our brain, we're actually preparing our mind, brain, body. And that's to get all the chemicals flowing correctly and the energy flowing correctly and the neurochemicals. And because if they like a tsunami, a big messy wave, you can't concentrate. So you want to get that network organized. So things like breathing and like a little bit like meditation, those kinds of things can help you to get your mind, brain, body into a good alignment. So just breathing in for 3 counts and out for 7 a few times is a great way to get that all the chemistry of your mind, brain, body connection working. Then, and I give lots of examples in the book of how to do that. Then you start the 5 steps. So think of it as the pilot preparing the plane, preparing the brain. So preparing the brain is things like breathing and so on. Then the pilot takes off, but it's very organized. They can't just randomly take off. It's they've got to follow instructions and there's rules and there's things. So that's what the first step of the Neurocycle is, like taking off, and it's called gather awareness. And it's gathering awareness of how you're showing up. So how you feel and how that feels in your body. Feelings never live alone. Feelings, how you feel, also is going to have an impact on your body. So if you're feeling sad, how does that feel in your body? Maybe your stomach is sore. How is that affecting your behavior? So what you're saying and what you're doing. Maybe you're grumpy and don't want to talk to anyone. And then the other signal, the 4th one, is how does that affect how you're looking at life? I hate school. So there's an example. So you're gathering awareness of those 4. When you do that, you're starting to pull the thought, because if you think of those 4 signals like 4 balloons and they're attached to something. So as you gather awareness of those, as you take off the plane, it pulls this up into the conscious mind. And as soon as you are consciously aware, all the little protein branches like glue become very weak, and it gets shaky like this, which means that you can start breaking that bad stuff down and build a healthy one. This is a good one. But if it was the toxic one. So the first step is to take off. Then the pilot's got to fly the plane. And if they don't know how to fly the plane, they're going to crash. So if you just talk about your emotions and you don't do anything else, you're going to crash. Okay? If you just prepare the brain, you're going to crash. You have to prepare the brain and you have to take off. Then you have to fly. So there's 3 steps for flying. The one is to then say, okay, if I'm taking those 4 signals, the feelings, the body sensations, perspective, behaviors, and just say, okay, why do I feel those? And get more sentences around them and more description. If you feel other emotions, you have other parts, and so on. So you work. Then you're going to write it all down. It's still part of the flying. So the 3rd step is and that's where you draw pictures, draw it in a circle. The more you make it like a pattern, the harder your brain works and the easier you're going to get down to the root of the tree, okay, the root of the thought tree. And then still flying, there's one more step for flying. So gather awareness is the taking off, the reflect, and the right of flying. And there's one more flying step, and that is to recheck. And rechecking is to go and look at what have I written? What does it look like? What's happening here? What do the pictures mean? What else? Anything making sense. This has happened. What can I do about it? This is where it's great to ask your each other and your parents. This happened. I don't know how to look at this differently. How can I look at this differently? What can I do? This person keeps bullying me and they keep stealing my lunch and they keep on saying nasty things to me when no adults are around. How do I deal with this? So that's what that 4th step is. Then you've got to land the plane. And that's the fifth step. And that is, okay, this is my action that I'm going to take to practice this new behavior. And so those are 5 basic steps that you can do. And that's called the Neurocycle. And you can, if you do that every day, if let's say, for example, you have a bad habit that you've got, like learning to eat, you guys already eat well, but let's say that you didn't. It wouldn't take you 1 neurocycle to fix up your eating pattern. It wouldn't take you 1 neurocycle to fix up if someone's upset you through bullying or dealing with parents that maybe are getting divorced or something like that. And I'm giving different examples. I know that's not the case in your family, but I'm just giving, there's a lot of people that watch your show, and it's very possible that someone is going through that experience. So if it's something bigger like that, then what my research has shown is that to rewire this, to break this down and make it healthy, that takes about 9 weeks. That's quite long. And you've got to do it. You can do the neurocycle in like 5 minutes, so a minute for each step. You can go longer if you want. You can go like 15 minutes if you want. And I have a whole chapter on the timing. But you need to do it every day for 9 weeks. It's kind of like you think of a pilot. They didn't learn to fly in 1 lesson. They took weeks to learn. My husband's actually doing a pilot's license just for fun. He's going for, it's weeks now. He's into his, I think, 7th week now of doing flying lessons. And that's, so anything that you're going to learn does take time. So if you're going to change something, it does take time. If it's a very big trauma, like if a child was abused, and I'm sure there's someone who's watching right now who's had a very bad early childhood experience, or a parent of children watching now who went through something, they can use this for themselves. The best way to help you guys is for your parents to do this. Parents, the best way for a parent of a child is for a parent to do these 5 steps, learn it themselves, do it themselves, and then help you guys. And then it becomes a whole family affair. So if it's a bigger thing like a trauma, then you'd have to do the neurocycle for maybe the neurocycle every day for maybe multiple cycles of 9 weeks. And that sounds like a lot of time, but if you don't think of it, between now and 9 weeks time, if you're not doing any mind management, so the neurocycle is how you do mind management, then your mind's even more messy, your brain's even more messy in 9 weeks time, then you're feeling worse. So it's worth doing it. So the neurocycle basically is your tool to help you change your brain and change your life. And it's very easy to do once you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, you are amazing. And let me just recap, because there's a lot
I said a lot.
Yeah. So for everyone watching, what you need to do is that a lot of people, they don't realize, like example, they don't realize they have stress until it starts affecting them. So the same thing can be said about mental health. That's why, like she said, you should always just check yourself. Am I feeling a little bit sad about this? Is there someone bothering me? And once you figure out that, then you can start to go into how you can help yourself with like that. Like we
fly the
love
plane. Then you're going to fly the plane. Once you
Yes.
said, then you're going to fly the plane. Those are the 3 steps. There you go.
That's why we love gratitude, right? Gratitude. We do like deep breathing, right? Meditation.
Excellent.
And sometimes it's sometimes you just need to get a break from social media as well, which can also be an amazing, like, just that break right there, an hour break, maybe will just like change everything.
Absolutely. So there's nothing wrong with social media, but there is something wrong with how you manage it. So if we don't manage social media, then it doesn't work for us, it works against us. But if we manage social media, it's very useful. AI is very useful. And the way we can access through technology, access all this information, it's great for schoolwork. But if you don't manage it and you do it for too long and you don't take breaks, all that, everything you look at is growing in your brain. So it's literally a situation of, do I want this in my brain? Do I want this in my body? Because if I'm focusing on it, I'm growing it. And then you ask yourself, oh, well, if that's the case, and that whatever you grow is going to affect it's going to drive you. So what do you want the garden of your brain to look like? That's really what you want to ask yourself. So if someone is saying something to you that's making you feel uncomfortable, or you're reading something on internet that's making you feel uncomfortable, that is growing in your brain. So you need to say, hey, this is making me feel uncomfortable. I don't like this. I don't want to focus on it.
So we love this. We've been practicing mindfulness for a long time. So we actually have been practicing this cycle for a long time. It's very
wonderful.
Helpful. Yeah, very wonderful.
I'm so excited.
Thank you so much. This was so powerful. Everyone, please get this book today. We need to start to learn to manage our mental mess. So that was so empowering. Everyone make sure to follow Dr. Leaf on social media. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
Lee.
you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you guys, and thank you for the great work that you're doing. It's phenomenal. I think your mom is amazing that she got this going. Thank you for all the people that you helped. It's wonderful.
Well, it's our pleasure.
It's our pleasure.
So there's nothing wrong with you or your brain. We just need to find the cause, and this will help us to have the ability to take charge of our mind. And remember, you're not broken, and life is just hard in general. You don't have a disease of your brain, and you can manage your brain. Every experience you have is driving our brain and body, so we need to put the same attention to our experiences, just like we have for our food and other parts of our lifestyle. Dr. Leaf has described the Neurocycle in her book, and that is the 5-step scientific mind management system that will put us into the conscious mind. Then we need to learn to fly the plane.
Love it. You said that beautifully.
She describes this as he said, as learning to fly a plane. So we have to take the 4 signals to ask ourselves why you're feeling in that way. Draw it down so we can get to the root of the tree. Then we reflect and recheck.
Remember, the healthier your mind, the healthier your body and your brain is. So, but it can take about 9 weeks to help yourself clean up your mental mess. So remember to ask yourself what to do, what you want to do with the garden of your brain to look like, because we're gonna be living with our brain for the rest of our life. So we're gonna have to, we have to take care of it.
Love it.
Thank you so much for all you're doing for us, kids.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Dr. Leaf. That was was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Thank you. I enjoyed it so much. Thank you. You made my day. It was lovely. Thank you so much. I know you're
Thank
going to
you,
touch
everyone.
many lives.
Mhm. Thank
Thanks.
you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Zansari.
I'm Abdullah.
And I'm not.
Follow my family and I on social media, Holistic Mom MD, and look out for my mom's book. She has written a lot of them. Kids need to learn from other kids. Please download our podcast in iTunes and leave a review so other kids and families can benefit. We need to create a healthier future for all of us and the planet. Join us next week for another episode of the Holistic Kids Show, where kids are empowering kids. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.